Welcome to part 3 of my Anakin Skywalker Character Analysis. If you haven't seen part 1 or 2 yet, then I highly encourage you to do so. I'll throw up the title card and place a link in the description to it. In today's video, I'll continue my case for Anakin as the greatest Star Wars character, looking at his role in episode 3. So without further ado, let's get into it. When Anakin returns home, we would then see how all of this has been affecting him and his mindset as he opens up to Padme.
Sometimes I wonder what's happening to the Jedi Order. I think this war is destroying the principles of the Republic.
Anakin shows here his true assessment to the Council's mission for him, and how he's further losing faith in the Council themselves, as they're not all what they were cracked up to be. This also shows Palpatine's success at making Anakin doubt the Jedi, as he questions their methods more and more.
Have you ever considered that we may be on the wrong side?
What do you mean?
What if the democracy we thought we were serving no longer exists, and the Republic has become the very evil we've been fighting to destroy?
I don't believe that. And you're sounding like a separatist.
Anakin shows shades of his absolute mentality, as he's quick to generalize and villainize others that may challenge the system that they have in place, as to challenge the Republic or the Senate, as to challenge his dear friend in Palpatine. And to hear this from his wife only draws concern for him, as it's the last place that he would want to be hearing this rhetoric from, as it almost feels like betrayal.
This war represents a failure to listen. Now you're closer to the Chancellor than anyone. Please, ask him to stop the fighting and let diplomacy resume.
Don't ask me to do that. Make a motion in the Senate where that kind of a request belongs.
Anakin has become brainwashed into thinking that everyone is against him, and he's extremely defensive at the thought of asking Palpatine a favor as direct as the one that Padme requests of him. So his two allies in the Jedi and his wife are becoming his enemies in his eyes, as they have their doubts about his father figure in Palpatine, who Anakin clearly is willing to defend. The fact that he has both his wife and the Jedi breathing down his neck in suspicion of his friend in Palpatine makes him all the more frustrated, as it feels like they're simply using Anakin because of his position of power, in this case his relation to Palpatine, with Anakin not realizing the impact that he can have in his position beyond being just a general and soldier in the war.
What is it?
Nothing.
Don't do this. Don't shut me out. Let me help you.
Padme understands that if you're surrounded by those that you care about, everything will be okay, no matter the circumstance, where Anakin has simply become paranoid with the what-ifs in life.
Hold me, like you did by the lake on Naboo. So long ago when there was nothing but our love. No politics, no plotting, no war.
Anakin needs reassurance from Padme to go back to a time when life was simple, when love was the answer to all of their problems. Back when their relationship started, they embarked on a leap of faith, and love was what steered them past the complex questions they had. But now, as Anakin's questions grow, he seems to forget what got them there and has tried to shut out Padme on multiple occasions, trying to keep her in the dark when he should be embracing their love, as it's the one thing he can control. Anakin then makes his way to the Opera House, where he would then have one of his most important interactions with his mentor in Palpatine.
He's hiding in the Utapau system.
At last, we'll be able to capture that monster and end this war.
It's been implied how Anakin feels about the Separatists, and he feels that way but even stronger towards their leader. He's focused and is all about creating finality to this 3-year war, not necessarily caring who gets the job done, as he uses the word "we" when talking about it.
I would worry about the collective wisdom of the Council if they didn't select you for this assignment. You're the best choice, by far.
Once again, Palpatine plays into Anakin's ego and expresses how he should feel if not chosen. Anakin trusts the wisdom of Palpatine more than anyone, so when he essentially says that the Jedi would be foolish to do something, or not in this case, Anakin fully agrees and believes it. This then flipping his perception from only seconds before, as he now believes that he should be the correct choice. After all these years, he's been seen as the hero without fear and one of the most successful generals. Being the one to lead this final assault and capture General Grievous himself would then cement his legacy in the Clone Wars and give him an undeniable accolade that would warrant being a Jedi Master, alongside being one of the only Jedi alive to defeat a Sith Lord on his own.
You know I'm not able to rely on the Jedi Council. If they haven't included you in their plot, they soon will.
For Anakin, this simple insinuation causes the gears in his head to start turning. Where he already had his reservations, now they're only heightened, as Palpatine is bringing to life his fear by speaking them into existence, about the idea that the Jedi Order and its principles are broken, the conspiracy that the Jedi are planning something terrible. One thing to note here is that even though Anakin is a part of the Council now, Palpatine always disassociates Anakin from it in order to make it feel more like an us versus them scenario, even though they should all be on the same team, which is why Palpatine plants the idea that the Jedi are plotting to take over, and have Anakin as their pawn, even though Palpatine has always viewed Anakin as a chess piece to his own game.
I'm not sure I understand.
You must sense what I have come to suspect. The Jedi Council want control of the Republic. They're planning to betray me.
I don't think they...
Anakin, that's your feeling. You know, don't you?
Palpatine makes a bold claim about the Jedi, and by Anakin's reaction, it's not so far-fetched in his own mind. The Jedi have always wanted control of his own life and the lives of thousands of other Jedi. So why not the Republic? And the easiest way to do that would be through their leader.
I know they don't trust you.
Or the Senate, or the Republic, or democracy for that matter.
Palpatine smartly portrays himself as the victim in this situation, even though he has been the shady one obtaining more power. He plays into Anakin's sympathy for him and makes it seem like everyone is out to get him, even the thing he claims to love in democracy. Anakin opens up about how the Council feels about Palpatine, not realizing that he's playing right into his trap, confirming his suspicion, and more importantly, validating that Anakin clearly has more trust in Palpatine than the Jedi Council.
I have to admit, my trust in them has been shaken.
Anakin opening up to him is another clear sign that Anakin's trust in Palpatine is stronger than anyone else, besides Padme. But where Padme said something that he didn't like or that didn't sit well with him, Palpatine feigns concern and responds with a spot-on answer of why he distrusts the Council.
Why? They asked you to do something that made you feel dishonest, didn't they? They asked you to spy on me, didn't they?
I don't know what to say.
Anakin is left even more conflicted, as he's been trained to side with the Council, but his heart tells him to side with Palpatine, the beginnings of the human heart in conflict with itself. What would follow would be the first time we get to see as an audience what being mentored from a Sith Lord is like from Anakin's perspective, as his journey very much mirrors the prototypical hero in Luke. Here, rather than receiving greater wisdom and knowledge from a virtuous sage, he receives it from someone more sinister, someone who doesn't have his best interest at heart. And as Anakin would challenge his opposing ideals, Palpatine would counter them at every turn, giving points that are hard to argue with, truly giving new meaning to playing devil's advocate.
All who gain power are afraid to lose it, even the Jedi.
Palpatine now begins to plant the idea that the Jedi are not as virtuous as they claim to be, as their power gives them an innate fear of loss, a natural human emotion to experience when you gain something of value. Of course, Anakin is quick to defend the Jedi, as he has a very black and white perception on right and wrong, failing to see that context is everything. What makes something good or evil to someone is what it's used for, which makes the concept a lot more subjective than he originally thought.
The Jedi use their power for good.
Good is a point of view, Anakin.
Similar to what Obi-Wan would say.
So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view. You're going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view.
Basically, two people can be doing what they believe is the right thing to do, but from their perspective, the one who opposes them could be seen as evil. Palpatine is trying to open Anakin's perspective and let him know that not everyone is just good or evil. This is necessary if Palpatine is to seduce and manipulate Anakin to joining him, because he needs to believe that he's doing the right thing, no matter how horrible the action. It's like George Lucas himself has said, no villain believes they are evil. Or in the words of philosopher Mary Wollstonecraft, no man chooses evil because it's evil. He mistakes it for happiness, the good that he seeks.
The Sith and the Jedi are similar in almost every way, including their quest for greater power.
It's interesting to get Palpatine's insight here, as he doesn't see it as a means to bring chaos or balance to the Force, rather as a competition for power, and the Jedi want it just as much as the Sith.
The Sith rely on their passion for their strength. They think inwards, only about themselves.
And the Jedi don't.
The Jedi are selfless. They only care about others.
Palpatine directly challenges what the Jedi have always told him about the Sith. It's ironic as Palpatine is the only one to truly show Anakin compassion, whereas the Jedi tend to be detached and forbid attachment, even though that comes from caring about others. Anakin may show to be locked in his belief here, but there's definitely conflict that's stirring, as he's been questioning everything the Jedi have done to this point. And it's with this heightened inner conflict that Palpatine would pull the ace up his sleeve to truly begin to lure Anakin with a temptation that is the dark side.
Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
No.
I thought not. It's not a story the Jedi would tell you.
Palpatine begins to tell the tale of his former master, with the intent of seducing Anakin to the powers that the dark side has to offer, and it's only fitting that Palpatine tells the story in an opera house, the home of many famous comedies and tragedies alike, as the tragedy of Darth Plagueis is one of the biggest factors that ignites the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker, from the chosen one to fallen hero.
He could use the Force to influence the midi-chlorians to create life. He had such a knowledge of the dark side, he could even keep the ones he cared about from dying.
Once again, Palpatine tells Anakin what he wants to hear, knowing that he cares about Padme's safety more than anything the Jedi tell him. This, of course, intrigues Anakin, as it's literally the solution to all his problems, something that he's been vouching for since Attack of the Clones after losing his mother. And the fact that this is being presented as a dark side power opens his mind to the idea of tapping into that side of the Force to accomplish his goals.
He could actually save people from death.
The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
Once again, Palpatine opens Anakin's mind to the idea that the Sith aren't so bad, and that there are benefits that come with it that he would never be able to obtain with the Jedi, but he wisely leaves out the negative consequences of turning to the dark side, as adhering to the unnatural dark side of the Force will leave you in an unhealthy state of turmoil, constantly consumed with anger and aggression, and a slave to your emotions. And if that's not enough, the power you seek is what others crave.
What happened to him?
He became so powerful. The only thing he was afraid of was losing his power, which eventually, of course, he did.
This, of course, being the destructive cycle of the Sith, toxic in nature, as a Sith apprentice can only be promoted through one action. And of course, without realizing it, this is how Anakin begins to enter this cycle, as he begins to crave this power, and only when he obtains it would he be satisfied.
Unfortunately, he taught his apprentice everything he knew, then his apprentice killed him in his sleep.
Once again, the way of the Sith. Anakin doesn't see the dark lesson here, that even though he saved others, he still suffered the same fate nevertheless, and acquiring this power probably didn't give him happiness, as it probably would not for Anakin as well.
It's ironic. He could save others from death, but not himself.
The face Palpatine makes when he says this shows that he has so much joy in doing the most horrible things. As the clear apprentice of this story, he was overjoyed to become the master that day. Also, the line is similar to Palpatine's own fate, as he saves Vader from death, but is betrayed by that same apprentice and killed. Also, again, Anakin does not look at the consequences and simply wants to learn it anyways, and once it's been spoken, he will not rest until he's acquired this ability. While submitting yourself to the dark side is a dangerous game, Palpatine still accomplishes his mission of manipulating Anakin and piquing his interest. And when he expresses this interest, Palpatine makes it clear that only one path can lead him to what he desires.
Is it possible to learn this power?
Not from a Jedi.
Anakin then returns to the Jedi Council, hopeful that their decision will finally align with Palpatine's recommendation, and more importantly, his own desires.
The Chancellor has requested that I lead the campaign.
The Council will make up its own mind who is to go, not the Chancellor.
A master is needed with more experience. I concur. Master Kenobi should go.
Anakin is quickly introduced to the consequences of his lateral promotion to the Jedi Council, as Yoda immediately pulls rank on him, where Anakin is swiftly denied the mission he believes he deserves. And what makes it worse is that Mace almost says this in a way to spite Anakin, and now Anakin must witness his master take on the task he desires. This again places Obi-Wan and the Council in a bad light, and he's directly associated with their wrongdoings, even if he had nothing to do with the final decision. Also, Obi-Wan being sent to go after Grievous is the final piece of the puzzle for Palpatine's success, as Anakin will only be able to rely on Mace for help. This being a microcosm of the greater issue with the Clone Wars, as the Jedi divided themselves over the years from each other, and they were easier to eliminate compared to if they had been united.
You're gonna need me on this one, Master.
Oh, I agree. However, it may turn out just to be a wild panther chase.
Obi-Wan understands that Anakin is a great asset, and is willing to give him his respect as a warrior. He also knows that this mission had significant meaning to Anakin, so he wisely downplays its importance to ease his frustrations. Anakin is sad to see his master leave, truly believing that his place is by his side. They've been one of the best duos throughout the Clone Wars, so to see him go on his own makes him worry a little. It also not only leaves him on his own physically, but mentally as well, as now both Yoda and Obi-Wan are gone, two people that he truly looks up to. And being left with just Mace is a recipe for disaster, which is why Anakin feels like he must get what's on his mind off his chest, to leave his master on good terms, knowing that their last few interactions have been a little rough, to say the least.
I've disappointed you. I haven't been very appreciative of your training. I've been arrogant, and I apologize. I've just been so frustrated with the Council.
You are strong and wise, Anakin, and I am very proud of you.
Anakin does a great job here of taking accountability, something he feels that the Jedi have been lacking as of late. So he chooses to be the bigger person and own up to his mistakes, apologizing and explaining his point of view on things, and it makes his fall all the more tragic, as Obi-Wan truly did believe in him here, finally giving him reverence and speaking highly of him, trying to lift him up with words of encouragement. For once, not hitting him with sass or being overly critical of him, something that Anakin has been wanting his whole life.
I have trained you since you were a small boy. I have taught you everything I know, and you have become a far greater Jedi than I could ever hope to be. But be patient, Anakin. It will not be long before the Council makes you a Jedi Master.
Here, Obi-Wan gives Anakin some great advice and reassurance. He sees that Anakin is willing to open up and show vulnerability, so Obi-Wan does the same and praises the growth that he's made as a Jedi and a person, emphasizing the idea that the man he's become is more important than any rank the Jedi could ever give him. In hindsight, this goodbye is the final time that the two characters truly speak to each other as brothers.
Obi-Wan, may the Force be with you.
Goodbye, old friend. May the Force be with you.
And the younger brother must take his master's teachings and use them to aid him, as he will be given an important choice with destiny. This is the tough part about being a master, as you can train someone their whole life and guide them along the right path, but they must make the final decisions for themselves. Although Anakin does not truly seem satisfied, as once Obi-Wan turns away, he has a much more serious demeanor. He's tried taking the high road, but the reality of feeling better after is a hard skill to master, one that only comes when you learn to accept things for what they are. Anakin's dreams keep recurring, and the images become stronger than before. This time he sees Obi-Wan in the mix, as he's there for Padme when he probably feels that if anyone is there, it should be him, only heightening his suspicion of those closest to him, as seen by the frustration on his face as he's in his home.
Obi-Wan's been here, hasn't he?
He came by this morning.
What did he want?
He's worried about you. He says you've been under a lot of stress.
The previous idea is furthered by the fact that Anakin shows signs of getting paranoid or defensive when discussing his master, asking in a more interrogation or detective style rather than out of pure curiosity. And when Padme tells him why he's been there, essentially that he cares about him, Anakin finds it difficult to accept the truth.
I feel lost.
Lost? What do you mean?
This line alone defines what Anakin feels most accurately throughout not only this movie, but his character arc as a whole in the series. When he goes to others for answers, he only finds himself with more questions, and the list of people he trusts only seems to get smaller, and where he usually lives by placing his faith in others, now that's in question, as those others have given him cause to believe that they don't truly have his best interest at heart. A man who feels alone in the world can be a dangerous one, and the more he feels alone, the more he will want to salvage the life of Padme, and the more he will cling to Palpatine to fill the void of the Jedi who not only has he lost faith in, but they have in him.
I don't trust him.
Obi-Wan and the Council don't trust me.
They trust you with their lives.
More signs that Anakin is becoming paranoid. Again, he doesn't listen to reason, as it's difficult for him to buy into the idea that they care about him, because he's a man of action, so he looks at their actions. And right now, even after all these years, he feels like he's still being used, just as he was when he was a slave on Tatooine.
Something's happening. I'm not the Jedi I should be. I want more, and I know I shouldn't.
You expect too much of yourself.
While Anakin has complained that Obi-Wan has been overly critical, sometimes our biggest critic is ourselves. Anakin is comparing himself to the idealized Jedi, or the concept of the Chosen One, an expectation that the entire Jedi Order has placed on him. A dangerous thing to do, as comparison is the thief of joy. So he will never truly find happiness if this is his mentality going forward. As Padme points out, his expectation is from where all this disappointment stems from, and his quest to meet those expectations will only end in heartache and pain, as he would have to change himself for the worse in order to meet them, as he believes that his success is directly tied to his power. But in truth, true success is reaching our potential without compromising our values. An idea his son would accomplish on his way to becoming a Jedi, and Anakin would finally understand after.
I found a way to save you.
Save me.
From my nightmares.
Is that what's bothering you?
I won't lose you, Padme.
I'm not gonna die in childbirth, Annie. I promise you.
No, I promise you.
It's clear that Palpatine's words have been stuck in his mind, and now he's obsessing over it. Anakin is willing to do anything to protect Padme, and anything has no limits, whether for good or bad. Rather than placing his faith in his love and trust as Padme does, he places it in his fear. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. I had a ton of fun making this video, so if you enjoyed it too, then I highly suggest liking the video. And if you want to see more like it, then definitely hit subscribe. And if you want to be notified when part 4 comes out, then hit the bell for notifications. Or consider checking out my Patreon, where I'll be uploading videos there significantly sooner than on YouTube. So part 4 should be available there as I speak. And the same will apply to the next parts when they come out. And on that note, I want to give a shout out to my patrons. Your support means everything to me. And finally, let me know in the comments which Star Wars character has gone through the greatest fall from grace and why. And who knows, they might be in the next one. Until next time, I will bring peace, freedom, justice, and security to my new empire.